Good afternoon. You're watching i24 News with a special edition this hour. Let's take you live to Nice and the scene of last night's horrific attack. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls declares 3 days of national mourning following yesterday's deadly attack that killed at least 84 people and injured scores others. And in this hour, 10 children are among the dead. 18 people are still in critical condition. Pictures streaming in, and now this live coverage from the coastal resort earlier showed the truck that was used to carry out the slaughter. Police announced they have found the ID of the 31-year-old Frenchman of Tunisian origin and have taken a mobile device from the scene believed to belong to the attacker. Investigators are seen arriving at the scene this morning. As the shattered truck remains in place. Just last evening, revelers filled the streets to celebrate Bastille Day in Nice when the truck plowed through the crowds at approximately 50 kilometers an hour before being shot and stopped. This was 2 kilometers later. The truck was filled with ammunition and explosives, which could point at plans for an even greater attack. Extremely graphic video from the scene, unfit for TV, shows bodies sprawled on the street, many in pools of blood, as people ran past in horror. One day after, as the visuals show, no sign and no remains of that, but we are seeing some heightened security. French President François Hollande said the attack was of an undeniable terrorist nature and vowed to fight the jihadists as the country extends its state of emergency by 3 more months. So far, no group has claimed responsibility. And now we're going to go live to France, where our reporter Peter Humi is standing by. Peter, thank you for joining us in this very, very sad day in France. No one has claimed responsibility, as we mentioned. Is there any indication if the attacker acted alone?
Well, according to what information we do have from the authorities, he certainly appears to have acted alone. It appears also that he was not someone who had come over or come back to France from Syria. The man, the 31-year-old Frenchman of Tunisian origin, we've just learned, in fact, that he was married and had 3 children. So slowly the information is coming out from the authorities. They're piecing together exactly why and also how someone driving such a large vehicle into an area that was meant to be pedestrian only during the fireworks display to celebrate Bastille Day in Nice on the seafront, on the Promenade des Anglais. How exactly did he get through those barriers that were meant to stop all vehicles going through? Obviously,
absolutely.
The barriers
and
were
we
not
can
substantial.
see the images of people running last night. As you mentioned, Peter Humi will be back with you later today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll thank you at this point. Now, France seems to have become one of the main European targets for IS attacks, with ingrown terror becoming an evident problem authorities will have to deal with better. Shanine Khshoni takes a look at the wave of new terror that has rocked France from the attack on Charlie Hebdo until now.
In recent years, France has become a target for terror attacks by world jihad organizations. January 7th, 2015, the shooting attack on Charlie Hebdo offices. 2 brothers forced their way into the offices of the French satirical weekly newspaper in Paris. Armed with assault rifles and other weapons, they killed 12 people and injured 11 others in the building. An Al-Qaeda-affiliated group claimed responsibility for the attack. January 9, 2015, the attack on Hyper Cacher, a single terrorist who pledged allegiance to the Islamic State, shot 4 people to death at the Jewish supermarket. The terrorist was connected to the attack on Charlie Hebdo and held shoppers in the supermarket hostage while demanding to free the terrorist from the Charlie Hebdo attack. French commandos stormed the store and killed him. November 13, 2015, the single deadliest terrorist attack in French history. Targeted a music venue, a sports stadium, and several bars and restaurants. 90 people were killed during a siege on the music venue Bataclan, and the French president was evacuated from a football match between France and Germany at the Stade de France after 3 separate suicide bombings over the course of about 40 minutes. IS claimed responsibility for the attacks. June 13th, 2016, the Magnusville stabbing attack. A police officer and his wife, a police secretary, were stabbed to death in their home in Magnusville by a jihadist. IS claimed responsibility for the attack. July 14th, 2016, the Nice attack on Bastille Day, terrorists used a truck to run over people who celebrated on the promenade.
And we're now going to go live to our correspondent, Ron Friedman, who's standing outside the French embassy. Ron, just yesterday, the embassy, the ambassador, were celebrating the Bastille Day, their Independence Day, which hours later had a very tragic ending. What are you seeing right now outside of the embassy?
Hi, Michal. Yeah, so here in Tel Aviv, on the boardwalk outside the French embassy. The embassy is open, but very few people coming in and out. A bit of a feeling of extra security around here this morning. We can see police vehicles standing guard outside. Right now, we haven't seen any displays of solidarity. Assumedly later on throughout the day, people will be coming around here, laying wreaths, expressing solidarity with the victims of the horrendous attack in Nice. We do know that later today there's going to be a solidarity march in the northern town of Netanya, home to many French Jews who immigrated to Israel. They're going to be marching to express solidarity with also loved ones that were lost in yesterday's attack.
Ron, thank you for these updates. We'll be back with you later today as we expect a tribute to be there in place where just yesterday, across from the embassy, a celebration, a party was being held. And in studio, I'm joined now by our Middle East correspondent, Mohammed Al-Qassem, and our Foreign Affairs editor, Owen Alterman. Thank you for being with me. First of all, Mohammed, reactions from the Arab world this morning?
Wide condemnation, general condemnation came out officially from Jordan and other countries. These are countries that felt or have seen attacks like these happen in the past. So it's not surprising coming out from Jordan and coming out from Egypt and Saudi Arabia and other countries. I think now these countries are trying to show the world that they are part of this these terrorist attacks, that they are part of the victim category rather than the assailant category. So we are seeing more and more public statements coming out of officially from different governments around the Middle East.
Absolutely. And as far as cooperation, are people talking about expanding, increasing cooperation between Europe and the Arab world? Because up until now, Europe has seen itself as a sort of victim, and now the Arab world is trying to say, no, we're the victims as well. Are you seeing any call for increased cooperation, intelligence, security, whatnot?
There has been cooperation on an official level between many of the Arab countries as well as Europe and the United States. It's no secret that in, whether it's Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries, in Egypt, and even North African countries such as Tunisia and Algeria have cooperated on different levels with the Europeans as well as the United States. Some Arab countries even accuse the Europeans and the United States for not cooperating enough with them and not taking the information that they give the Western world, be it Europe and the United States, seriously. But there has been cooperation, and believe it or not, the Europe and the United States cannot defeat terrorism without cooperating closely with the Middle Eastern countries, including that of Turkey. So I can tell you, Michal, that there has been cooperation, and now we're hearing more and more, even from a public on a public level, the Arabs in general, the Arabs on the street, that they're asking to do more cooperation in trying to defeat these attacks. Let's not forget, just 2 weeks ago, there has been a very bloody attack in Iraq, in Baghdad, during the holy month of Ramadan, where 250 people killed in one night. The deadliest attack in many years in Iraq. So this is not exclusive to one area or one religion.
Absolutely, and I'm bringing you back now to the images we can see from last night, as we saw people running this morning now in Nice. We can see heightened security. The streets are empty at this moment. We don't know the identities of the victims at this point, but we know that many nationals were in place. Owen, what kind of reactions are we seeing from world leaders and from the United States?
Well, obviously, Michal, across the board condemnation from Barack Obama, from John Kerry, Secretary of State, from Theresa May, the newly minted British Prime Minister, from Angela Merkel, from Donald Tusk at a European-Asian summit in Mongolia. From all corners of the world, condemnation as one would expect. In the United States, naturally, this is factoring into the presidential campaign. Donald Trump giving a phone interview to Bill O'Reilly last night on Fox News that's getting a lot of attention. Hillary Clinton also reaction.
War on terror. Yes, and Mohammed, you have an update for us?
We have an update now, according to BBC in Arabic as well as other French media, that they identified the name of the truck driver as Mohammed El-Houej Bouhlal of Tunisian either born or
Which is important to note also that previously, sorry, I'll let you finish in just a second, there were different identities thrown out on social media, which is always very dangerous to point out the wrong suspect.
That's
so this
correct.
is actually a suspect that's now been confirmed by officials.
And confirmed by official, and it says that the police at this moment is doing inspection of his apartment in the city of Nice in France. So his name again, Mohammed El-Houej Bouhlal. They say that either he is of Tunisian background, maybe his parents, because we've heard reports also that he was born actually in France, so he's a French national. However, his parents are immigrants into France. But so far, that's what we have from different media outlets. The name of the driver of the truck is Mohammed El-Houej Bouhlal.
Now, whether he acted alone or not, and whether there was actually a command coming in from Raqqa, defeating IS in Iraq and Syria will not defeat the ideology that now lives very strongly among European communities. As you said, he is a French national. Yes, Owen.
Well, we'll have to learn more about exactly how this person became radicalized and what connections he did or didn't have with IS's official command, or whether he was self-radicalized or radicalized over the internet. But again, we heard from our reporter in France that he is 31 years old, he's married and has 3 children. So again, it's somewhat reminiscent of the shooter in Orlando, who was also married, also, I believe, had children. So it doesn't always fit the precise profile of what we think of young unmarried men who committed these attacks, showing how wide the phenomenon can be.
I think we have to be careful with these things. We've also heard today that he may have had a criminal record in the past, so the entire information on him hasn't been out. But this goes back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, that even though the Islamic State is losing territory, its territory is shrinking in both Syria and Iraq, and maybe its Khilafah, this dream on Khilafah is not going to happen, but doesn't mean that this is their demise. I think they're adapting now, and they're moving from plan A to plan B, which is they're now going back to trying to spread their ideology. They're trying to achieve and reach. They're very good at and reach as many people as possible. And this is basically what they're doing. And keep in mind that 2 years ago, an Islamic State leader have called on its sympathizers and members to attack France. And in fact, he used the word, and I'm quoting here, the filthy French, and use all means to attack them, including cars.
Absolutely, and this comes not long after the month of Ramadan is over. We'll talk a little bit about that and the timing, but first I want to bring you back 2 images from Nice the morning after, as we're now joined by our senior political analyst, Christian Malaud. Once again, thank you for joining us. Earlier showed the truck that was used to carry out the slaughter. Police announced they have found the ID of the 31-year-old Frenchman of Tunisian origin and have taken a mobile device from the scene believed to belong to the attacker. Investigators are seen arriving at the scene this morning as the shattered truck remains in place. Just last evening, revelers filled the streets to celebrate Bastille Day in Nice when the truck plowed through the crowds at approximately 50 kilometers an hour before being shot and stopped. Indication if the attacker acted alone.
Well, according to what information we do have from the authorities, he certainly appears to have acted alone. It appears also that he was not someone who had come over or come back to France from Syria. The man, the 31-year-old Frenchman of Tunisian origins, we've just learned, in fact, that he...
This was 2 kilometers later. The truck was filled with ammunition and explosives, which could point at plans for an even greater attack. Extremely graphic video from the scene, unfit for TV, shows bodies sprawled on the street, many in pools of blood, as people ran past in horror. One day after, as the visuals show, no sign and no remains of that, but we are seeing some heightened security. French President François Hollande said the attack was of an undeniable terrorist nature and vowed to fight the jihadists as the country extends its state of emergency by 3 more months. So far, no group has claimed responsibility. And now we're going to go live to France, where our reporter Peter Humi is standing by. Peter, thank you for joining us in this very, very sad day in France. No one has claimed responsibility, as we mentioned. Is there any... Good afternoon. You're watching I24 News with a special edition this hour. Let's take you live to Nice and the scene of last night's horrific attack. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls declares 3 days of national mourning following yesterday's deadly attack that killed at least 84 people and injured scores others. And in this hour, 10 children are among the dead. 18 people are still in critical condition. Pictures streaming in, and now this live coverage from the coastal resort.